Hello, I'm here today to talk to you about changes to colorwheel. This is version 0.2. You should have already watched the longer tutorial. Pretty much everything in that is still going to be accurate, or as accurate as it was at the time that I recorded that tutorial. And now we have this version, which the biggest change is it's 1/3 the amount of code. I refactored the entire thing with help from Dan and Tyler. Thank you all so much. First big change is we no longer have individual track mutes. So it used to be you held this button and tap these buttons, right? And then those tracks would mute. You can just use the global probability page to do that, right? We don't need to tie up multi-button press things where you can only do one track at a time and shit, when you can do one-handed mute everything all at once. Yeah, that's better. So you should just do that. And then sort of the next thing is the addition of this page, which is the alternate note page, which functions really similar to the way that it functions in Kriya, which is that it adds whatever values listed here, values are 0 through 4, to whatever's on your interval page. And this has its own per step probability, and it also has its own loop length and its own clock div. I got all that in tables now, so it's really easy to just add a new thing and give it all the fun global tricks that everything else has. Yeah, so that's a pretty self-explanatory, simple thing. The next thing that has changed, and I'm going to have to go over here in order to demonstrate this in real time, is the interval display page is modified by transposition settings. So when I turn this knob here, I went into the parameters menu, which is still not super well organized, but that's okay. When I turn transposition, this now accurately reflects the melodic contour that you'll get from transposition. And when I change carve, you get to see which notes are being eliminated. So let's go down to minimum carve and then move transposition around. And you can see these are different pairs of notes that are perfect fifth or perfect fourth apart. That's pretty neat, right? So you can compose with the arc in mind and then watch it be transformed in whatever way. Now the next major change is that whenever you make a shift in these offsets here, you trigger a note independent of track probability. So this gives you sort of a live performance gesture, right? In the initial implementation, which was exclusively in modular systems, right, this was a hard offset that was being applied. So whenever you moved it around, it would slew a note, right? This sort of stepped slewing effect that I think is an ARP 2600 thing, I've been told, or maybe an ARP Odyssey thing. I've never used any classic synthesizer, right? But that's where this comes from. So watch me press a button. And we get a note. Right? And it's whatever the last note that was played on this is shifted by whatever amount, right? That's pretty neat. So if I move the offset param, right, so you could hypothetically map this to a MIDI thing. And here's what that sounds like with more sustain. And in the context of a sequence playing. Definitely going to sound better on a higher pitched source, so let's change the main octave thing here. It does stuff. It sounds cool. Here it is with a whole bunch of delay on it. playing a wider variety of notes. That's fun, right? Let's stop that. Move that back down. Okay, what are some other changes? Are there other changes? Oh yeah, so when you access sequence length by holding down this button on the gate page, it doesn't actually change the display at all, right? So just if that button is lit, you're modifying sequence length, like so. So there is one other change regarding the function of these offset or flourish, I've been calling them, buttons, which is when you use them, they either work root, fifth octave, right? So in C, right? C, G, C, G, C. Or you've got this little switch now. And when that switch is dimmer, it works root fourth octave. So here's what that sounds like. As opposed to and hopefully in that simple phrase, like you saw, the musicality of the trigger and note when you move that button thing, right? Like, it's fucking cool. Okay. That's all.